Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, I'm going to talk about the official trailer that came out for Season 3 of Pennyworth. If you haven't seen it already, I'll include a link to it in the description down below. First and foremost, I think it's so interesting because obviously that was kind of something that's passed around news-wise when a teaser initially dropped for it, that the subtitle for this season in particular is The Origin of Batman's Butler, which I find so interesting considering, like, well, the whole premise of the show is it being origin of Batman's Butler, Alfred's origin, his, background and stuff. But I guess maybe the implication is that this season leans into it even more, that this season might put him even more directly on the path to becoming the Alfred that would eventually work alongside / serve the Caped Crusader himself. I'm curious about that. I mean, obviously there's elements in it that really lean into that, but I guess maybe it's because he's working with Thomas's father, and that kind of puts him even more in a position to be with the Waynes. But he already has a relationship and ties and connections to Thomas and Martha. So, but whatever the case may be, some really interesting things about the trailer. I really like the kind of very 70s psychedelic kind of vibe to the trailer and some of its transitions and stuff. And it seems like first and foremost you have Thomas's father coming to Alfred for help because there's a mind-controlling psychedelic drug. And I'm curious, is that going to be a big storyline or not, or is that just going to be kind of pretty resolved pretty quickly? Because there's also the other side of the storyline where it's like Martha coming to Alfred because it's they're experimenting on people and stuff, and I guess kind of making people, power people, maybe after the whole situation with Goalie, they're trying to replicate that to some extent. So I don't know if those are two separate storylines, and maybe the psychedelic one is just kind of a shorter storyline, and maybe the other storyline is the more prevalent one, or maybe they're two of multiple storylines. I mean, two overarching storylines, or maybe they are connected. They just felt so disconnected in the trailer, but maybe there is aside from Alfred, that maybe there are more connective tissues connecting that. Obviously, there's a lot of context we don't have because at the end of Season 2, there was a time skip, so we don't know 100% of the state that London's in. It seems like everything's okay, but we do kind of cut back to Alfred, him and Dave Boy, and I think we see Goalie at one point in time. I think we see them kind of being in a position that they were in last season, but it seems like a lot of that's kind of already resolved. It's oh, London's back to the way it was. We don't need to kind of be all about that fight anymore. Maybe we get little bits at the beginning of the season kind of catching you up on that 1 year. Once again, I believe it was a year, but I could be mistaken, that time skip and just what's kind of happened since then. Because it seems like everything's kind of back to normal. It looks like Alfred and Dave Boy are kind of continuing Alfred's, business and stuff, and obviously that's when Thomas's father reaches out to him. My brain being what it is, at one point in time you do see someone, you can't see who it is, kind of throw a bolt of lightning, which immediately my brain, being what it is, and the little I know about DC stuff, I was almost just kind of there's no way that's Black Lightning or something, because I don't know, I'm not well versed enough in DC to know whether or not or even just Batman lore, or even just DC lore in general, how much this show's leaned into any DC stuff, specifically stuff from the comics, and how much is just stuff they're making up for the show. Because part of me is would they even connect something like that? Which would be interesting if they did kind of go for that aesthetic, considering because Black Lightning obviously is a character originally from the 70s, I believe, so it would be interesting if that is kind of the route they were going, but maybe that's just kind of hey, it's a superpowered person. Because we see someone else later in the trailer who's kind of wearing a suit very similar to Goalie, so I guess that's another powered person, but they kind of use kind of electricity or whatever to grab a car and then toss it behind them and it explodes. So we also don't really touch on Martha and Thomas's situation. Obviously the baby being born last season, once again it's a year time skip, and obviously the whole thing about they having a daughter and not being Bruce, which isn't a concern for me or anything like that, but it was just something I'm curious, the theories running around about what that necessarily meant, for this Batman canon and what's going to happen, and maybe what happened in that maybe year time frame. I mean, who knows if even more time has passed since then. But I do love the cheeky ending where it's Lucius handing Alfred a grappling hook. He's okay, this is yeah, I get it. You point it and shoot. and he does it, and he's like, oh wow, this actually, I was actually surprised that this actually ended up working, which I love, you know, being very cheeky, and it's like, oh, will eventually become one of Batman's greatest assets, that a version of that grappling hook later on down the road. So I like that. Once again, everything's so out of context, so I'm not fully sure what to storyline wise what we're fully going to get this season. Kind of don't care. I thoroughly enjoy Pennyworth, so whatever craziness and wildness they're going to throw our way, I'm excited to see what ultimately ends up happening this season, what they set up this season. Once again, where we pick up from last season. But obviously, these are just some of my thoughts. I'd love to get to know yours in the comments down below. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and good